Welcome to today's episode of Stop the Scroll. I'm going to be honest, today's guest is somebody I've fangirled over for a long time, so I'm really excited. Jayde Powell is both a content creator and a marketer. As the founder and head of creative at the M Co., which is a content and creative development agency, she's also the host of Creator Tea Talk, which is a LinkedIn audio series that brings together players in the creator economy to discuss all things creators, content, and culture. She's done incredible work for Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, Essence, to name a few, all of which I'm obsessed with, if I'm being honest. And also, just to be real, like your content is hilarious and I love it. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I know we're
Hey.
going to have so much fun.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a million and one questions for you. But first and foremost, I know you're on Instagram, you're on
Mhm.
TikTok, you're on LinkedIn. I've actually seen some brands running ads with your face, and I'm always like, I kind of know her.
Yeah, I get like text messages about them all the time. It's like, "This is you." I'm like, "It is."
That's so fun. I love it. Um, so as a creator, which channel is your favorite? And then as a marketer, which one is your favorite?
Okay, so these days I'm gonna say LinkedIn, aka what I call the briefcase app, and LinkedIn is honestly so much fun for me right now, which is not what I ever would have thought I would say, a previous version
Mhm.
of myself. But I really enjoy it because I just feel like people are so quick to build community because I feel like it's inherently a networking site in comparison to other platforms. And I feel like as a content creator, that is great for opportunities. But as a marketer, I'm going to say Instagram is that girl. Especially for brands that are wanting to grow. I feel like, especially in the CPG space,
Yeah.
just because it's like our most highly visual platform where people can actually see what your brand is about, what your ethos is, what type of products and services you offer. And people are just highly visual. So I think Instagram is great as a marketer.
So first of all, how long have you been creating content on LinkedIn and when did you start to like it more?
I would say technically for about 2 years now. But I would say LinkedIn is something I've always used as a platform, but it wasn't until I started working as a content creator on LinkedIn that I was like, okay, I like it now.
That's
as
fair.
just like as an everyday user, I was like, I actually hate it here, but as a creator, it's that girl.
It's a lot better once you start creating content because I'm going to be honest, I could not get into it before
Yeah,
that. It
same.
was a hot mess. So with TikTok, then I'm curious, like as a marketer, do you think there are things about the platform that most marketers just aren't tapping into that would make it, in your opinion, better?
I think TikTok is great for brands, especially in comparison to like a LinkedIn, Twitter, or other platforms, or even a Threads. I feel like Instagram and TikTok are in the same space in terms of just like creating highly visual content. If anything, I feel like it's easier to build community on Instagram because I feel like the comments, the ability to DM, like I feel like those things are set up for like the actual social part of Instagram. But I think on TikTok, I almost feel like people are using it more as like a search feature. So I think it depends on like what your approach
Mm.
is. Like if you're a brand that wants to like do a lot of education or like showcase the experiences of your brand through video content, TikTok is definitely the way to go. Definitely the way to go. But on Instagram, I feel like if you're more focused on community building, not to say that you can't do that on TikTok.
I'd agree with that for sure. I think the way TikTok's just the way like the For You page looks,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not really, as somebody who's just a scroller, I don't create content, do not expect to see my face on there ever. But as somebody who just like looks at content, names aren't really sticking with me. Like faces do. I
Yeah.
never search out, like seek out a creator or anything like that. Community is tough on there.
Yeah, and I also think it's like a blessing and a curse. Like TikTok's reach is like absolutely insane, which I think is great. Like you can post anything on TikTok and it go viral in like a week, and you just didn't even realize it, which I think is great for a lot of brands and creators who like want that visibility. But I think Instagram, like you said, I think it has this ability for you to like remember who the people are. You can see a little bit more on their profile,
Mm.
where I think TikTok almost feels just kind of like a almost like a dumping ground for like content, which is like not a bad thing. I just don't feel like it serves a different purpose.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I agree.
Mhm.
So you've mentioned the word creator. I'm curious like how you define creators versus influencers, or do you use them interchangeably?
Both. I use them interchangeably, and I
Mhm.
think there is an inherent difference. I think I use them interchangeably because the industry often does, and just to like keep the line of communication very simplistic instead of being like and or creators and but I think it all comes down to the intention. Content creators to me are people who create content, and when I say that, I also think that content looks differently for everyone. It doesn't always have to be short form video. Content could be a podcast. Content can be a blog. It can be copy. It can be a lot of things. And then influencers are people whose sole intention is to amplify a brand's product or services. They're using their audience and what they know about their community to expand and to expand a brand's like reach or brand awareness. And content creators are strictly there to create content. Like in traditional advertising agency land, they would be creatives. It's just like a
Mhm.
different way we're describing them.
Do you think somebody can be an influencer and not really be a content creator?
I think yes, because I do think if we even think about like early influencer days, like an influencer can be someone whose just presence is known in real
Mhm.
life and they could just show up at an event and it's like, that's Mary Jane and she's so fabulous. But like they may never have created a piece of content in their life.
It's true.
It's almost like being a socialite in a way.
Yeah.
But I do think influencers can for sure be content creators if they're using content to amplify their reach on social or beyond. And I think it's the same with creators. Like I think creators can be influencers, but I definitely don't think you have to be influential. You have to create content to be influential.
Makes sense. And what do you consider yourself, just out of curiosity?
Both, but I
Okay.
always tell people it's by platform. So I influence on LinkedIn and nowhere else. I'm a creator on all platforms.
Would you want to like do brand partnerships on Instagram?
I would be open to it. I feel like Instagram is one of those places, and this is what I've spoken to other creators about. Like, I feel like there's this inherent pressure to be perfect on Instagram. I think because it
Mm.
is so visual of a platform. And honestly, every time I think about like really investing in content creation or even potentially influencing on Instagram, I get really stressed out. So I'm very much one of those creators. Is like I'm going to create content when it feels easeful for me. And on LinkedIn right now, that's where it does. So that's what I focus on.
No, I feel that. I don't know how long you've been on Instagram, but do you remember back in the day when the thing to do was to become like a suggested user for your
Yeah.
account? Oh my god, the energy I poured into that, I think
Yes.
that burnt me out, and like I've just never recovered.
I know it's a lot of work. I feel like even it's so funny because as a social strategist, I remember I will like talk to brands or even creators, and they'll be like, "Instagram told me that you have to like post 30-second reels every single day for the month to get visibility," and I'd be like, "No, you don't. Who told you that?" And it's literally like Mark Zuckerberg or what's his face,
The
the
other guy, I know who you're talking.
the one that's Adam Mosseri, the one that's
Yes,
always doing the reels.
yes.
But it's so funny because I think as I explore social more and like work in this field, I'm realizing like, yeah, Instagram actually really does want you to post like 30-second reels every single day. Granted, they may decide that's not the case anymore next month, but that's
Yeah.
social. Yeah,
Yeah, so until I have the energy, I'll be posting my once a year photo dumps where people get 8 photos of my life.
that's
That's
like
it.
you don't get what you get. Be thankful.
You're gonna get what you get, and that's you might get a story, but
Yeah.
that's about it. So, I support
Yes.
it. Okay, so you're a content creator, you're a marketer. I'm really curious your thoughts on pricing.
Mm,
Um, it's complicated, at least in my opinion. Curious what you
yes.
think. Like how much to charge as a creator, but then you turn around and you're like trying to work with other creators, influencers. How do
Yeah.
you approach this as a creator first?
Honestly, I operate in Delulu land, so I just ask for what I think I can ask for.
Sure,
And
sure.
it's just because like there isn't really standard rates. So I
Mhm.
just look at a brand and I'm like, I'm gonna just ask for this and see what they say. And every time I work with a brand, I just either increase and if they say no, I'm like, okay, let's negotiate.
Delulu is the Salulu, and I love that.
It's very unserious, but it honestly works for me so far.
Yeah.
Like I've had brands pay me $10,000 and I have brands pay me 1,500. But guess what?
Yeah.
The money is moneying in the way that it
Right.
needs to.
Preach.
Um, but what I have found is like when I ask for a rate that maybe is too high, a brand will give me a reason why typically. And
Mhm.
like, for example, recently I quoted a brand, I think $6,000 for a combination LinkedIn video and Instagram video. And they came back to me and said, we have $500. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And but they gave me like their mathematical formula. They base it on impressions, so cost per impression, and they were like, based on what we've seen from your past couple of videos, it's way your impressions are less than like what we would get in terms of return, which is understandable. So now I'm like, okay, what do we need to do to increase this 500, but maybe it's not at the 6,000, you know?
Yeah.
So I just feel like, there's always, every brand is going to be looking at how they measure ROI of an influencer or creator very differently. Some have been in the mindset where it's like you're paying for content, so it doesn't really matter what the ROI is because I'm not an influencer, I'm a content creator. So really, I feel like depends on the capacity in which you're working with them too.
So in that same vein then, or in similar vein,
Mhm.
I've seen you on TikTok. I've seen your face on TikTok when brands are running ads. Like,
Yeah.
how do you have the same kind of approach for that too? You start at one place and just see where they come back?
Yeah, pretty much. And but I will say when it involves like sponsored content, I typically ask for more because it's essentially like you're hiring talent in a way, like
Yeah,
you're utilizing my face for your brand message. So like it would
yeah.
be different if I was just creating branded content for your channels for the brand to go post, but it had nothing to do with me. I'm just the creator creating it. But when it's like content that's supposed to be sponsored, that's I always go higher.
That makes perfect sense, and I love that for you.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. Delulu is the Salulu. It's
It's
never
a
failed me, I'll be honest. I kind of have a similar approach. Like, I have rates,
mhm.
but, like,
It's
we'll
like
we'll see what
vibes.
happens. Honestly,
Exactly.
it's okay.
And the way I see it, honestly, the way social moves so quickly, like I feel like it's the same as any other profession. You gain new skills, you learn new things every month, every week, and you're allowed to price accordingly.
That's very true. That's a really good point. So then as a marketer, it's just such a big question. Like, obviously, yes, you typically have a budget, but how do you typically determine, like, how much you would spend with one creator?
Yeah, honestly, so I remember I was working at a startup, and obviously with startup, you typically have smaller budgets. So I remember I had a 15K budget for influencers and creators. So I intentionally reached out to creators that were already within our community because they already had a love for the brand, and it wasn't just like I'm an influencer, and I want to work with this brand just because I want to get you on my portfolio as an influencer. It was
Yeah.
just more so like you have a love for the brand, so you'll be more likely to work with us. And I remember with that 15K, I spent it very quickly within a year, but I remember like I was getting so many different rates from creators. Some creators who had substantially more of a following than others were asking for substantially less, and it was all over the
Mhm.
place. So I typically just ask the creator what they can work with, well, what their rate is, and then try to work around that based on what I know about my budget and how many creators I want to work with. So let's say during that time, I remember the first quarter of the year, I knew I wanted to work with 6 creators. So around that, I wanted to say, I don't think I spent more than maybe like 200 to $500 per creator because
Okay.
I was like, I got more money to spend,
Yeah.
and then I need more money to spend. So yeah.
So I want to take a second to talk about Impact.com, who is sponsoring this episode. Impact.com is the world's leading partnership management platform, and they're transforming the way businesses manage and optimize all types of partnerships. Everything from affiliates to influencers, B2B, you name it, they're doing it. They teamed up with Adweek in this research report called The Secrets to Thriving Creator Brand Partnerships. And if you have not checked it out, you need to. They cover everything from creator satisfaction to really understanding what creators are looking for in terms of comp, communication, even performance expectations, right? So if you're curious to learn more, you can download the full report at impact.com/LP/Brie, and I will drop the link in the show notes. So, complete sidebar, because you mentioned this, and I've been in this situation myself. You start to work with a creator, you get their rates, their media kit, whatever, and you see that they're pricing themselves like really low.
Yeah,
Do you ever bring it up to them?
absolutely.
I love that because some marketers don't. Like, it's like a
Yeah.
conflict.
I
Kristen.
definitely think there is this. I personally feel in order for us to have a sustainable creator economy, there needs to be transparency on both sides. So
Mm,
I don't think it benefits the brand in the long run to not be honest about the budget that we have or give them some insight into what other creators are charging. Especially for the brands that talk about believing in equity, that's where it starts.
yeah.
So one thing that we do know is that Black, Brown, queer creators are oftentimes going to undervalue themselves. So if I see a creator that we're working with that is white or is a man or someone who I know is asking us or other brands a lot of money, I'm always going to let these creators know. I don't like say, oh, this creator, charged us
Right.
this. But I'll say like, hey, just so you know, other creators within our roster have also charged this. Or I'll just say, we have more budget, so you
Mm.
can ask for more, which is
I
like
love
the
that you do that.
the politically
That's
correct thing. We have more budget.
yeah. Just so you know, like
Yeah.
there is extra money. No, I love that because I feel like there's this assumption or misconception that, as like the marketer or the brand behind it, you can't say something because you're trying to protect your budget. But you make a really good point. Like if we want to create a sustainable creator economy, one, we don't want creators burning out
Mhm.
and undervaluing their own work and then finding out what other people are charging and getting
Yeah,
fed
and that
up.
that could turn into a PR crisis, which makes it even
Exactly.
worse.
Which, hey, that'll cost even more. So might as well just handle it now. But no, I love
Exactly.
that you do that. I think that's really great. Um, okay. Of your favorite brand partnerships that you've done as a creator, what did you enjoy the most about them? And of the ones you didn't like, what did you not enjoy?
So I always give this example of my partnership with Sprout Social, which has been
Mm.
ongoing for the past couple of years. But one thing I love about Sprout is that they allow me to share the ideas that I want to do. And they're not just like, hey, Jay, we have this campaign. Do you want to be a part of it? Like, I get to pitch my own concepts as well. And I think one of the biggest ones that kind of came out of our partnership was during Ad Week, Social Media Week, where I got to do an Instagram stories takeover, which was so much fun. And I was so grateful that they were open to it because I've never been like a on camera MC host, but I was running around Ad Week with my tiny mic asking people questions. And I think it just really turned out to be really great content. And, not only did like Sprouts community really rally behind it, but mine as well. And I feel like that's always a sign of a very like successful partnership when you have like the community of the creator and then the community of the brand come together as well. But I don't think that would have happened had Sprout not just been open to the concept. So I think working with brands who kind of like allow me space to be a creator is
Yeah.
always great. And then I will say I've worked with brands that I've also loved, but they have been very messy about their accounts processes. So getting paid late, despite the fact that we've agreed on net 15 payment terms, or
Yeah.
guaranteeing me that they were going to pay on time, and not being flexible on my late payment fees and being like, no, we don't do that, and still paying me late. It's like those things are never enjoyable. And I would definitely say they make me not want to work with the brand going forward because it makes it feel like that trust isn't there. So, yeah.
That is a really great point. And actually, I've not talked to anybody about that on this
Mhm.
podcast yet. Creative freedom is,
Yeah.
I think that's talked about really often, just in general, like when people think about influencer marketing. Payment, though,
Yeah.
that's a huge one. I remember I had this company that wanted to work with me. They had net 90 terms,
Mm.
which I just find that absurd. I'm not going to wait a quarter to
Yeah.
get paid.
It's
And
practically
then
a
what?
year.
What'd
I
you
said,
say?
I said it's practically a year.
Practically a year. Like, just pay me next year, I guess,
Yeah.
whatever. So net 90, and then I'd heard from other creators that they had paid like 90 days late
Yeah.
after that. How do you typically handle that? I heard you say that you bake like late payment fees into your contracts. What else do you do to protect yourself, and what do you not agree to with a
So
company?
most recently, I have been requesting my payments, half of my payments upfront when I can, especially if
Mhm.
the terms are net 30 and longer. Just because, like, because typically brands are asking for the content upfront, and it's like you have to
Mhm.
create it as soon as the contract is signed. So at
Yeah.
least to protect my IP and like what I create, I want to make sure that there's like something holding them accountable to actually pay me on time. But I will say, like, worst case scenario, I will be very childish and get on LinkedIn and harass everyone in the AP department until I get paid.
So, as you
Well,
should.
that's good, because it's like you guys wouldn't do that to your employees, so why are you doing it to your contractors or your creators? Like, it's just very unfair. But I did have a situation where I
Mhm.
worked with a very large reputable company, and they had net 90 payment terms, and they did not want to do upfront. They did not want to bake my late payment. They were not negotiating with me. They were like, it's not happening. And honestly, I should have taken that as a red flag, because later they filed for bankruptcy and I never got paid. And but what that taught me was to not bend on my terms. So
Yeah.
now I'm very strict about, like, beyond net 30, like, I won't do it unless you're paying me like a hefty portion up front.
Well, and you make a really good point. You wouldn't do that to your employees, and if you did, you can expect those employees to get on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
the
Start
briefcase app,
bragging.
as I'm now gonna call it. Like, they're gonna get on everything and talk about it,
Yeah.
probably gonna hire, like, an employment lawyer, whatever. They're gonna handle it. But I hear
Mhm.
this with freelancers too, not even just, like,
Yeah.
content creators. It's these insane terms, and then they're not honored,
Mhm.
but they happen to negotiate your late payment fees out of the contracts, then you're just kinda sitting there for your payment. And to your point about a sustainable creator economy, it's such a small world, especially in B2B. If you burn 2 creators,
Yeah.
15 are
Yeah.
gonna hear about
Everyone
it.
else is gonna know.
Yeah, they're
Exactly.
not gonna work with you. Like,
Yeah. And I think that's what's so funny. I think that brands sometimes can really underestimate the power of community. Like, I
yeah.
think they think like, oh, these creators, they don't have lawyers. And some of us oftentimes don't. I certainly don't have a lawyer. But what I do know is that if I get on my Instagram, my TikTok, or my LinkedIn and say so and so brand has not paid me, I bet I will get my check immediately.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and it's you can't want to work with a creator because of the community they've built and then expect them to not
Yeah.
utilize that community when the time comes. This is so for real.
Exactly.
Wow, that's wild though. I wonder if it was the same company. We're gonna talk offline
Yeah.
about that.
That's
So what is one thing you wish creators knew about marketers when it comes to working together?
Ooh, that's such a great question. I've never been asked that question before.
Ooh.
I think I want creators to understand that, like, marketers are not the final decision makers. And
Yeah.
while I am always going to be an advocate for creators and what creators deserve, like, sometimes it really just is beyond our control as marketers. Like, we may have, chief marketing officers making final decisions for us, and it's like that's just not within our control. And
Yeah.
sometimes you kind of are at the whim of, like, internal structures, corporate politicking, a lot of things that just, like, have absolutely nothing to do with you as a creator, and it's very unfortunate. Like I said, even with that example, I didn't get paid not because the team I worked with was, like, shitty. I just didn't get paid because they decided to go bankrupt, which is like not their fault.
Right, 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 right.
And that's a company issue, not a influencer marketing team issue. But I think that, and I would say my advice for creators in general is just to get really business savvy, because it's one thing to just be really talented as a creative, but really understanding how businesses work, how businesses run will really help you in the long term, and then ultimately set you up for success so that you can run your business effectively. Just even that, like, communication piece and making sure that you're staying on top of your contracts and reading everything is really important.
Yeah, that that alone, make sure you're reading those contracts. I think it's really easy to just assume that maybe it's just a standard agreement, you've seen it
Yeah,
before, but there can be some fine print in there.
absolutely.
You always know.
And usually, like, the contracts just have information that, like, you probably didn't realize you needed, or
Yeah.
like, just looked over. Like, I remember at one of the previous brands I worked for, I was the head of social there, and I was working with influencers and creators. And I remember one of our creators tweeted that we didn't pay them, and I was like, oh, because I'm the one you worked with, and I can tell you that didn't happen. And I remember I went to go look, and I realized they didn't read their contract because it said net 30, and the 30 days had not passed, but they
Mm,
didn't realize that because they didn't read it. And I was
I
like,
didn't
they
read it.
contract. But I assure you, I sent the invoice to AP. It's processing. It's just gonna take another.
Just give us the 30. Yeah, no, that's important. You gotta read the contract, and you're right, like, I can't even tell you how many times I've found, like, maybe let's say like the perfect creators, campaign would be flawless, and the team above me just didn't want to work with them, or they changed the structure of the campaign or whatever. It is
Yeah.
really to a certain extent out of our hands.
Yeah, and that's honestly just how social works, how marketing works within
Yeah.
teams too. Like, I've been on teams where, and this is not even influencer marketing specific, but I remember I worked at a startup where it was like heavily regulated because it was in the cannabis industry. And I remember our whole 3 months we were working towards this campaign launch, and the day before they were like, we have to change all of our packaging. Like the day
Oh,
before.
it's
I
really
was like,
fun.
okay, cool.
Oh my god. What
So
did you
it's
end up doing? Were you able to launch the campaign later on, or?
Yeah, we were able to launch it, but we literally had to email all of our influencers and creators and be like, "Hey guys, all the content you shot, we can't use it because it has
Surprise!
a surprise."
Happy birthday, you're welcome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
social is literally like showbiz. It's very unserious.
it really is, and I worked in CBD for a while.
Yeah,
Oh my god. That stuff happened all the time.
yeah.
All the time, drove me insane.
Corporations are.
So as a marketer, what do you wish marketers knew about creators?
I honestly wish that more marketers understood that creative work should be valued.
Mm,
I think social as an industry is very undervalued. I think
mm,
a lot of marketers kind of in comparison to other like marketing mediums or channels, I feel like social can be viewed as like, kind of like this frivolous younger generation like
yeah,
thing that is like, oh, we don't actually need that. But I think people who work in social understand that it has the power to make or break your business, and that doesn't it like it doesn't even matter like how long you've been in your industry. Social just has that much power. So I think when working with creators and influencers, just like don't underestimate them. Like they can really help move your business through something as simple as a short form video.
mm.
And even if you think it's simple, that doesn't mean a lot of work and effort didn't go into it.
Why do you think social is so undervalued? Because it's been around at this point for quite a while.
Yeah.
Like we've seen the ROI, but it is I agree with you. Like in my opinion, it is still really dismissed.
Yeah, dismiss is a good word. I mean, I think when we look at, I just always think speak to corporations. I think when we look at corporations and who often are in the leadership, this is the leadership positions or oftentimes the decision makers. They're usually people who are very comfortable and aren't really pushed to learn beyond what they know or have no
Mhm.
interest in it. So I feel like because social is a field or type of marketing that's a bit newer, I think it's just something that is often like overlooked or just like seen, as something that isn't really necessary. Like even
Yeah.
when I've seen companies who do like mass layoffs, it always seems like marketing is like the first to go. And even if we think at like marketing, it's like always social. It's like, oh, let go of all those creatives. We don't need them. And it's like, do you know what marketing does for your
Yeah.
business? Like marketing is everything. And of course I'm a marketer, so I say that, but like I think a company can accomplish a lot with marketing. And I feel like it's something that needs to be prioritized no matter what type of business you have.
No, I feel that. And I think for anybody who doesn't agree, they probably haven't watched Mad Men. I feel like once you watch, that might be a spicy take. I feel like once you watch Mad Men, if you don't respect marketing, you do after that. Just
Exactly.
ignore the racism and misogyny and just
Yes.
enjoy the show.
Just your everyday racism misogyny. No big
It's
deal.
fine. Just close your eyes. It's okay. Okay. Dream partnership as a creator. Who are you working with? It can be more than one brand. What are you doing? All the details.
Okay, so dream partnership. I'm working with LinkedIn because I've already thought about this. I'm working with LinkedIn directly.
I'm glad you asked because I was going to bring it up anyway.
I'm working with LinkedIn directly, and
Mhm.
we're coming up with like a very comedic campaign about renaming LinkedIn the briefcase app. That is like my personal,
Ooh.
because I really feel like the people that have been following me, I've noticed like because I am vain and I do the searches every month. I see more and more people starting to call it, and I'm like, I did that. That's my influence.
Okay. That actually, I would support that campaign wholeheartedly. I'm not going to lie.
Yes, but I also like on a more serious note, aside from my personal desires, I really want to work with them on a campaign that talks about LinkedIn being a new hub and space for creators because I do think
Mm.
it has so much potential and opportunity, and many creators aren't considering it because they're afraid of LinkedIn. And I've heard that
Mm.
directly. Like, they're afraid of being themselves on them because they don't feel like they can. They feel like if they post about their lives, there may be consequences because of their employers. Like, it's a scary thing, and I get that. So I really want LinkedIn to position themselves as like a future hub for creators, and I want to lead
And
that
you're
campaign.
right, like, those are valid fears too.
Mhm,
There should be
absolutely,
more content creator on that.
I agree.
What are you most excited about when you think about LinkedIn and, like, the creator economy?
I'm excited for the opportunities for monetization. I kind of want to see
Mm,
where they take it and how it goes. Like, I think LinkedIn is such a great space to grow your personal brand, which is
mm.
a large part of content creation. And I feel like there's just so much opportunity that can come out of it as a platform. So I'm really ready to see LinkedIn kind of tap into that and like really create it as a space that like content creators can monetize on it.
Yeah, I hope they really start to embrace that, like,
Mhm.
I know other people have this update, I don't, but I know there's the update with, like, the video tab.
Yeah,
I can see them
yeah,
starting to create,
yeah.
like, features for creators, and I think there's so much opportunity there.
There is, yeah.
People
It's
do
like
it.
I definitely see that like they're putting in like laying the groundwork. Like
Yeah,
they had it where you can build out a creator profile, I think, or turn on creator mode. That's what they were
right.
calling it. And I think they took it away for a while. But even when they did have it, like I saw a lot of people in my network who are also creators like turning it on, and I think it just kind of
Mm.
shows like a desire for that kind of space.
Yeah, apparently creator mode is now default profile mode, which I did not know that. I thought they just took it away.
Yeah, I knew that because I remember reading a LinkedIn article. Like someone reached out to me about like LinkedIn creator advice, and I shared that, and I was like, "You have to turn on creator mode," and I was like, "Oh wait, it's just your default. It's
It's
fine.
just
Never
saying now. Oh, wow, this whole time I was, like,
mind."
missing it, but it was just there
Yeah,
all along. Look at
yeah.
that. So where can people find you, follow you, and learn more about your work or work with you?
Yeah, so I am Jade I Powell on all channels. That is Jade with a Y because I'm fancy, and also especially follow me on LinkedIn, which is my favorite platform right now.
And it's the best, what can I say? It is the best platform. We'll drop all of your info in the show notes, and thank you so much. This was
Thank you
great.
for having me. This was so much fun. Thank you.